Hi, my name is Hannah Ager, and today I'm going to be talking about sport media's role in mental health awareness. So, one clear takeaway from the mental health and sports movement is that a person's objective success in a particular field doesn't imply mental health success. This is something that hasn't really clicked for people until more recent years. Traditionally, media coverage of athletes focused on their physical abilities with little to no attention to their mental health. Mental health stories were very rare and avoided by both athletes and the media. There is a very strong culture of silence. Mental health was seen as a bad thing that should not be talked about because it makes you look weak. There was a huge transition period that began in the early 2000s due to athletes like Ron Artest speaking publicly about mental health. He faced a lot of backlash, but this was the beginning of a gradual cultural change around mental health conversations. Artest is credited with starting the beginning of a movement, one where a cause was created, a stigma was lifted, all because he rambled. It's okay to tell the world that you need therapy. And that was an excerpt from a Sean Powell article written from the NBA in 2018, but Ron Artest originally spoke out in 2010. The media can be extremely toxic in the ways that they write headlines. Let's take our very own Texas A&M fan base for example. From the outside, you may not know how much our fan base spirals after a loss or a bad game. But a lot of Aggies have seen what happens to players who do not play well firsthand just due to being more involved with the university or with its sports teams. In 2021, Zach Calzada was thrown into the starting quarterback role after our original QB1, Haynes King, broke his ankle. We lost to Arkansas, we lost to Mississippi State, we lost to Ole Miss, we lost to LSU. Although Zach did lead us to arguably the best Aggie football win in recent years against Alabama, it did not stop him from the insane amount of hate he was getting. One headline from the Battalion read that A&M football's offensive woes were more than just Zach Calzada. Imagine being a 20-year-old kid and reading that if you're leading one of the biggest schools in the nation. The same thing happened to Haynes King the following season when he got his starting role back. We went 5-7, had an embarrassing loss to Appalachian State, and we did not make a bowl game. Our public message board, TexAgs, was nothing less than brutal to these two athletes. They were absolutely horrible to them. These are some images of some that have not been wiped off of the internet yet. Public message boards are a type of media where keyboard warriors emerge because words do not have as much consequences on the internet. These are more of a PG version than what we saw in real time. This can have a huge effect on a person's mental well-being if they happen to come across what is being said about them. Many people would say that we chased these two boys out of the SEC, and I do have to agree with that. So this just kind of goes to show that while we have made a lot of progress about the media being more thoughtful with what they write, there is still a lot more work to be done. There is a difference between reporting a loss or a bad game and pinning that loss on someone. Even if the loss is someone's fault, there are ways to write that where it doesn't pin it on that person and they take all the fall. Moving on from Texas A&M, our current state in sports media is that mental health has been way more embraced as a topic of discussion. Social media has made athletes way more accessible to fans and viewers, and we can see the human sides of them that we may not see as we watch an athlete compete in their sport. This shows vulnerability, and a lot of people respond really well to that. Some of the world's top athletes are speaking out about mental health now, which makes it easier for others to come forward, creates a huge ripple effect. Some of the most notable athletes to speak thus far have been Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, Michael Phelps, and Kevin Love. In 2021, Biles dropped out of the team final at the Olympics due to concerns for her mental health. This sparked a huge discussion because she is considered to be the greatest Olympic gymnast ever. Many media sites painted her as a good example, while others painted her as a quitter, especially on media sites like Twitter. She ultimately did return to competition a few days later to compete in the vault final where she earned a bronze medal, but the damage was already done. In 2021, Naomi Osaka withdrew from the French Open, and she cited concerns for her mental health. She really wanted to protect herself from the relentless negative questions from journalists before each match, and she was ultimately fined $15,000 and took a break from tennis after withdrawing. Michael Phelps is one of the most outspoken male athletes about mental health. He is the most decorated Olympian of all times, but would fall into major states of depression after every Olympics to the point where he even considered taking his own life at one point. He advocates for people to not be afraid of therapy, especially men. Kevin Love suffered from a panic attack during a game against the Atlanta Hawks, and he ended up leaving the game early. He was faced with a lot of questions, criticism, and backlash from teammates who did not know he suffered from depression. Kevin Love became the NBA's first face of mental health when he published an essay into the Players Tribune. Because of athletes such as these, media outlets tend to cover these stories with much more sympathy and compassion than they used to. The rise of social media and younger people being the bulk of that has also led to more compassion and understanding what pressures there are, and we are just way more outspoken as a generation than with these types of feelings than, say, our grandparents were. Organizations such as the NBA and the NFL have started to implement mental health programs for athletes to acknowledge its importance. The NFL has a comprehensive mental health and wellness committee comprised of experts appointed by the league and the NFLPA, and the NFLPA is the NFL Players Association. This committee develops educational programs for players, coaches, club personnel, players' families, just everyone in that player's camp regarding mental health and wellness. There are 5 goals listed online on their website, which I've shared on this slide. The NFL is on a great track to continue the conversation for athletes and taking responsibility for their players and taking care of them. The National Basketball Players Association developed a mental health program in 2018 in response to a surge of athletes grappling with mental health concerns. Through Dr. Parnham's leadership, the mental health and wellness program has developed 4 major pillars that still remain active today. The first component is the Directory of Mental Health Service providers. The second component is the Mental Health Literacy Portal. The third component is the Rookie Transition Program. And finally, the last pillar is the Global Summit of Mental Health and Elite Athletes. There's actually been a lot of continued campaigns to promote mental health awareness and collaboration with other professional players associations since this summit has launched. So all of this brings up the framing theory. The framing theory is something that is really important to sports media and the portrayal of athletes. The framing theory highlights how tone and perspective chosen by the media are not neutral, and they can shape narratives and attitudes towards athletes. It influences the choices people make about how to process information. This picture describes it perfectly from a non-sports perspective. Both are the same product, but the words chosen to describe them make all the difference in what people want to buy. These 3 images of articles show the same thing. All 3 of them portray the athlete in a sort of like negative light or a way that isn't as positive as it should be, and it kind of brings backlash to the athlete. Calling sports therapy mainstream has negative undertones and, to me, even some sarcasm. Calling Serena Williams' actions an outburst when she was challenging a call that she felt was wrongful is very defaming to her character. Sports are emotional. This is going to happen. Sports bring out emotions, whether they be positive or negative. The article from the Battalion basically says that Zach Calzada sucks without directly saying that. The media focuses so much on athletes' mistakes. These narratives can absolutely change what an athlete thinks of themselves, and it's very toxic. Mental health is health. Everyone faces struggles on and off the field, and there are resources and conversations to help people get through things. Something that the media can do to continue positive conversations surrounding mental health is to shift its mindset from mental health being a challenge to mental health being a part of athlete wellness. The media can also incorporate mental health into an athlete's storyline, such as what they do as a part of their routine to stay on top of their game and remain sharp. Mental health discussion should not only be discussed when something tragic happens. Normalization can make mental health a common and accepted part of sports culture. And that's all I have. Thank you for listening. And here are my sources. Me.